Hello, and welcome to another episode of Intune.training, the place to learn how to use Microsoft Intune, the Steve and Adam Show. Hey, I'm Adam.
Hey, I'm Steve.
How's it going there, Steve?
It's pretty good, Adam. We're batting 2 for 2 for our demos today, and hopefully
Yes.
going to round it out for 3 for 3. Um, so this will be a fun session. We're going to talk about doing the enrollment of iOS devices, and we're going to be leveraging the device enrollment program from Apple.
Excellent. And if you haven't previously watched our MDM certificate enrollment video, make sure you go watch that one first because this
Yep,
will depend on that. So if you haven't configured that, you need to do that first.
that's correct. So the other thing that it'll depend on, and I'll call it out when I'm actually going through it, but right now we've linked this with my Works DEP program because we don't have a Buns and Bradstreet ID that allows us to enroll into the Apple business management system. So that's why we're using, and it'll come up saying operations and technology group, and that's because that's my current company's work. So this is where what we're going to step into is under Intune, we go to the device enrollment and we select Apple enrollment, and you'll see that we've got the four options here. This is the one that we've previously set up. We also have the Apple configurator, which we're not going to be using today, but we're going to be using that enrollment programs token to manage device enrollment program or Apple School Manager. You'll note that I've already added, following this process of adding the enrollment program token. I'm not going to show you the Apple Business website because it has some confidential data in there that I'm not allowed to share. So we're going to select into this, and from here we have previously we've created a profile for the Mac OS, and this is when we're doing our testing and validation, and that will be part of a different video that we go through shortly. What we're going to set up for iOS now is the same thing that we've done for Mac OS, where we're going to hit create profile, but instead of hitting Mac OS, we're going to select iOS. This is where we select a name for it, so we're going to go Intune Training Demo, and we can add a description if we want, but we're not going to, and we select iOS. So we are going to make it so it is enrolled with user affinity, and this is a new feature that Microsoft's added with the support of iOS 13, where you now have the ability to select Setup Assistant or Company Portal. The difference is Setup Assistance is during the actual out-of-box experience on the iPhone, where it asks you for an account. You put in your username and password. What you'll note there is that it does not support the modern security features like multi-factor authentication. This is the same on Mac OS as well. It's something that Microsoft's working towards making supported, but not right now. So if you select Company Portal, it will go and download and install it behind the scenes and set it all up. Because we haven't set up the VPP, or the Volume Purchasing Program, for the Intune in the Company Portal, we're going to use the Setup Assistant in this scenario. We're going to say that it's going to go off and install the Company Portal, and it's not going to have any VPP associated with it. The device is not going to be supervised, so supervised devices are typically going to be your kiosk devices, your single-use terminals. These are the devices where you have full control over it and you limit the access that the staff has.
So that would be something like where we've got we're sitting in our doctor's office and they ask us to fill out our paperwork on an Apple device.
Yep,
This would be that type of scenario.
definitely, definitely. So this is a new feature that Microsoft's added, I would assume with Apple, where it gives us the ability to sync with computers. So this is where it allows your users to back up their data to their local computer or not. We're going to deny it in this scenario because we don't want somebody to be able to sync their data out of our network. You can also have it so you can sync it out with an Apple Configurator certificate, which is just a little bit more complicated on how you do that. But we're just going to hit deny, and we're hitting next, and this is what appears for the end user. So we're going to call this department is going to be IT, and we're going to be ringing a really complicated phone number, and the next step that we have is the ability to go and say what we want actually captured during that outer box. So we want to hide the restore, we don't want Apple ID, we're going to accept the T's and C's. Touch ID, it's going to make a longer demo, so we're going to turn that off. Same with Apple Pay, Zoom, Siri, diagnostic data. We're going to pretty much turn off everything.
Gosh, don't you wish you could just do this normally when you configure your regular personal iPhone device? Man.
Yes. But we are going to leave on location and passcodes, as well as onboarding. And yep, I think that's going to cover off everything we need. So
And this is just really based on your company's needs. It's
yep.
you can turn on or off whatever you choose.
And it's also based on what you feel you want your end user to be using and interacting with. So some companies might go, you know what, we're not going to capture location services, but we're going to for this demo. It all comes down to what is mandatory required for your environment. The one I like is the fact that I can hide that Apple ID now, so there's no requirement for that.
So, before we go on past this
Yep.
part, I'm thinking about this in terms of number of devices a user has to maintain and carry on their person.
Mm-hmm.
And I know many people that carry a work device and a personal device.
Yes.
And I can't fathom doing that.
Yep.
In fact, I gave back my company device and I just they have enabled me to use company apps on my personal device.
Yep.
Some places don't let you do that.
That's right.
But when I'm looking at this, I'm saying, okay, so unless I've got a specific security risk or whatever, I think I would probably configure this to be as user friendly as possible to compel a user to use the company device as their primary device, allow them to use it as their primary device so that they're not having to
That's right.
deal with carrying two devices around. Because, I mean, if we think about it from a business perspective, I'm giving you a company device because I want you to be accessible whenever I need you to do your job, especially for your higher value employees, the ones that manage accounts for outside customers or something.
Yep.
You want them to be accessible. So if they have to carry two devices with them all the time, it's going to be unlikely that, or less likely, I guess, that they're going to be accessible, even though you've taken the effort to give them the device. So this is my personal opinion on it, but consider that when you're setting this stuff up. Make it easy so that your person only needs to have one device. Make it feel like a personal device, but lock it down in a way that it protects your company data as well.
And that's it. And it's all about managing that corporate data. The device that's being used should be irrelevant, because we want to manage how you access corporate data. If as a side effect that we need to manage the device and lock it down that little bit more than what we would want to, that's the gold standard, right? Is we should only need to manage the device um, if we can't do it without managing it, if that makes sense. It was a little.
Yeah. So basically, make it as user friendly as possible while still maintaining our data integrity. So,
Yep.
but if we can make it appear that we aren't doing anything to the device, but we're still protecting our data, that's great. But
Exactly.
there's going to be trade-offs.
Yep. And that's exactly it. So we're just going to hit next on this, and we'll see that all the basic information's there, and all the configuration associated. We're just going to hit create, and you'll see here the next step for that demo is we select it. Where is it? Oh, sorry, we go back, and we set default profile. And this is where we can define the default profile itself. You can also assign devices, but for what we're doing with this demo, I'm just going to set it as the default profile. And that's done. So now if I go across to my iPhone, we'll see that it's now popping up. So there's a couple of things I'm going to quickly go through here that most people may not be aware of. You have the ability to hit the I down the bottom corner here, and that provides you the serial number and the IMEI and all of the identifiable information for that device without having to actually get into the operating system. So if you've got a whole heap of devices, it's really useful to be able to see that information. So we're back at that whole hello page, and we just hit the home button down the bottom. We select English. I'm in Australia, so we'll select Australia. And you'll see here straight away it's gone, your device needs to be remotely managed. And it's gone and created that profile and downloaded it. And we hit next. And it's now going to go and get all of the policy that's required for OTG or Operations Technology Group to be able to manage that device. And it's downloading that policy we just created on Intune onto the actual mobile phone itself.
So very much like I mean, if you're watching all the videos, sorry, but if you're only watching these, then you're going to hear this for the first time. So very much like the autopilot experience,
yep,
where we are enrolling the device in the company before from a reset out of the box experience for the user. And that's important because we need to be able to fully manage that device from the beginning.
That's correct.
Versus the difference of enrolling it after the fact, where the user can register it with the company, but it's not the same experience, not the same level of management. And so it's important that your device start at zero, at the out of box experience stage, but the experience is going to be very similar. And so if we're looking at from an autopilot perspective, we're looking at well, that's neat. From an if you're trying to sell your company on autopilot as a concept and talking about the user experience, well, it's very, very similar to what they're already used to whenever they're setting up a mobile device. So just something to consider there. And it looks like we're having a little difficulty on the demo.
Yeah, so it hasn't pulled down the latest profile because I got to this phase earlier. I'm just hiding my UI so people don't see my username and password for my Apple ID. And we just go back here. And I just need to verify on another device because of Apple's security model. So give me a second. So this will just go through the device enrollment program component, but it won't actually pick up the fact that we're having it auto enroll into Intune right now. This is where we'll just need to do a little bit of a reset, and it looks like our streak for the perfect demos today, Adam, has just been punctured.
Knew we were pushing it too hard, man.
It's all good. So this will go through, it will enroll us into the Intune training tenant and set it all up, but we're just not going to have a couple of the UIs suppressed that we were expecting to have suppressed.
So imagine that you did all those things and then this did work. It would have been the same experience. The goal of these videos is not to show you how to do things. It's for all the commentary in between.
It's the educational components. So this will take a little bit, as it's saying, to set that up for us. Shouldn't take much longer, hopefully.
Well, and so while that's going, I mean, we brought this up in the previous videos, but essentially, you will manage all of your devices in a very similar fashion within the Intune portal, regardless of the OS type that you're running, if it's Windows or if it's iOS, whether it's Mac OS, whether it's Android. You will have a very similar management experience within there. You'll be deploying policies and applications down to those devices in a very similar way. You just might have to, you have to go to the Apple Store to go get the Apple apps to push down. You go to the Google Play Store to get your Android. Same kind of deal. So,
Yep.
your experience should be the same across the board. Which, from my perspective as doing admin, I want a single pane of glass. I want it all in one place.
That's
So
right.
I think it's very nice to be able to, not have to use three different tools for three different platforms.
Exactly, and I'm the same. I don't want to have to worry about what's going on in three other platforms. Um, so it hasn't downloaded it. So what I'm going to quickly do, Adam, is whoop, um, so what you'll see here is it's popping up the guided access. This is where it's sitting there and saying you need to install the company portal application. Hopefully you'll find it, but I can't do anything on that device until the company portal application is installed on that device. If it doesn't find it, which could actually be the case in this scenario, we'll have to go and use the Apple configurator too to reset that device on a Mac. So the important thing to mention is when you're working with iOS devices, it's always best to have a Mac floating around that allows you to have the Apple configurator application there for that work to be able to reset devices and things like that correctly. It's a limitation that Apple's put on the technology. And
Well,
yeah, I think
they've
we're
got to
good.
sell hardware, right?
That's right. That is exactly it. Not that they were cynical, um, but this is just how Apple has made their decision. This is how they're going to do it.
Yep.
Um,
Okay, well, I guess we're probably
yeah.
as far as we can get on this one. I do
That's
know, Stephen,
correct.
that we've had a request to talk about, not in this demo, but in a future one, hopefully, doing looking at the default mail app and
Yep.
possibly enabling the single sign-on so that you can
Yep.
get to your company mail within that app. So I think we'll probably be revisiting the iOS, and I know that we got plans to look at the Mac OS as well once we can get some cycles to get those devices ready to go. So
Definitely.
essentially, what you experienced here was should have been the process. We just having some a little bit of issues getting the device to get what it needs,
Yep.
but this should be the process you follow.
Yes.
So good luck.
Exactly. And it just comes down to making sure that when you see these sorts of things like this error here, all you need to do is reset the device back to factory and it'll actually pick up the right profile and it'll continue on. It's just we didn't do a full thorough test.
Shocker.
Yeah, it's
It's 12:30 a.m. for me at this point, and we're on our third demo. What do you want?
exactly. Um,
Yeah.
cool. All right. Well, I think that covers off that session as well as we can. So we're going to call it a night or call it a session. Um, and yeah, thanks, Adam. And
Thank you,
obviously,
Steve.
uh, thank you if you've watched through and leave feedback and comments if you've got any questions about what we're doing and this sort of stuff.
Sounds great. And if you want to find us on social media, Twitter's our easiest place. I'm at Adam Gross TX.
And I'm at On-Prem Cloud Guy.
And be sure to check down in the description. We will include links to all of our. Oh, look at you doing the point. Nice. Uh,
But I'm just pointing down
hold
to
on.
you.
Let me here. Let me help. Look now do the point. Yeah, point. Go down there. Um, yeah. Check in the bottom. We've got links to our blogs and social media stuff as well. So, hey, did you guys know Steven's an MVP? You can even click through to his MVP profile. It's pretty
Just a
sweet.
little bit.
So, yeah. So that's it. and keep watching. Thank you for stopping by. Oh, look at
Thank
that.
you.
Doggone it. All right. See you, Steve.
See you, Adam.